Welcome back to the Seattle Seahawks franchise. We officially have a year under our belt and we're entering the most exciting part of any rebuild, which is the off-season. Before I get started, I do have some house rules for the off-season. 1. I will not attempt to sign or re-sign any player who has red or lower interest bar, and that'll apply for free agents or players on my team. If a player on my team has red or lower bars, I'll take it as a player requesting a trade or made it known they don't want to re-sign with us. 2. For the NFL draft, I will not look at mock draft 5 just to keep the suspense. And 3, I can only trade up once and trade down once in the draft. Since other teams don't trade, I want to make it a bit more challenging for me, and I also won't trade with teams that need a quarterback. As I enter into this exciting episode, I just want to thank all of you for being here. I truly appreciate all the support from everyone who subscribed to the channel so far. I'm still new to the YouTube thing, and while some of my earlier videos may not have turned out as well as I hope, I'm going to keep learning and improving with each one. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like the video. It would really help the channel get off the ground and it would be greatly appreciated. Our first year finished with only 7 wins and we did not make the playoffs. We had a rough start going 2-6 to start the season and benching Geno Smith halfway through, but we finished on a positive note going 5-4 with Sam Howell as our new starting quarterback. We at least had a shot at making the playoffs, but we couldn't finish at the end, just coming up a game short. This roster is going to go through a big time makeover and it still stings seeing everyone in our division but us make the postseason. We'll jump ahead to the Super Bowl, and as you can see, we have the Chiefs taking on the Niners in a rematch for the 3rd time. Obviously running the Seahawks, I want to see the Chiefs win this. And the result has the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl 31-21. Mahomes wins another Super Bowl MVP, and they accomplished the goal of being the first team to win 3 straight Super Bowls. We did not have any awards at the end of the year, so that will leave us at the coaches signing portion. We left off last episode by firing both our coordinators to get a fresh start going into the new season, and we're going to look for some new faces to fill these roles. Nicholas Gove is what I'm looking for in an offensive coordinator. I want someone who will help a quarterback develop, but more importantly developing the front lines of the offense, and he's the perfect fit of what we're trying to do. So Nicholas Gove is our new offensive coordinator. For our defensive coordinator, Jaxon Pierce seems like a good fit because we do want to blitz more and build from the guys up front as well. So Jaxon Pierce and his 3-4 scheme will fit our team nicely. I hope these guys can do a much better job developing our talent, and hopefully it will be displayed on the field. And with the additional staff points I just received, I'm going to use them towards opening up more focus player slots, so we can start developing the younger players and get more XP. Moving on to retirements, we have some big names like Harrison Smith, Russell Wilson, and Justin Bethel who just mentored for us. Some other names are Cam Jordan, Adam Thielen, and Aaron Rodgers, so the Jets will go through another quarterback carousel. Big loss for our rivals with Trent Williams. Lane Johnson is also retiring. Some other big-time offensive linemen hanging it up as well, Teron Armstead and Zack Martin. But the biggest name retiring though has to be Travis Kelce, and the Chiefs are trying to four-peat without their Hall of Fame tight end. On to the resigning stage, you can see we're in a bit of a pickle. We just have $20K to work with, and that'll mean cutting some big names to give us some more financial flexibility. The first guy we are cutting is Dre'Mont Jones. He will save us $16 million, and we'll look to find his replacement in free agency or the draft. Geno Smith is heavily regressing, and his story will end here after such a successful ride with the Seahawks. Sam Howell is our starting quarterback at least for next year, but the decision here is strictly to save money, and cutting him will help free over $28 million. So that helped. We now have a little over $44 million to work with. It's not a lot, but I don't plan on being heavily aggressive in free agency for the first year. We're gonna see if we can bring in some players on 1-year deals so we can properly allocate the funds for the future. In the re-signing stage, there's only 2 players I want to talk about. Charles Cross had a decent year. I wasn't a fan of his holding calls and struggling when we ran the ball, so I'm gonna opt not to pick up his 5th-year deal. And he doesn't want to come back anyways, so he may be a trade candidate. Tyrel Dodson, on the other hand, led the league in tackles and overall just brought a ton of energy after we traded Jerome Baker away. I'm happy with his production, and I'm willing to give him a 2-year extension for $14 million. and he will come back, so we'll have him and Tyrese Knight for at least one more year. The rest of this group I will move on from. We may consider bringing them back in free agency, but for now, we'll let them test the market. As we head into the free agency stage, this is the roster we're going in with. An offensive line needs a big time upgrade, and we'll address it most likely in the draft along with some other areas. Defensively, Byron Murphy and Uchenna Nwosu are now upgraded to superstar. Well deserved with their play, as well as Boye Mafe with star development. He had a great season whenever he was healthy. But we also have some holes here. We have a need at the defensive line, safety, and maybe even corner. The top player in this free agency class is Chase Young, who's heavily interested in being here in Seattle. But this class is on the weaker end of things to meet our current needs. We want to get younger and be as financially responsible as possible. Justin Fields is the top quarterback. I would have definitely offered him a deal if he had interest in being here, but the options at QB are slim. I started this process of getting younger players by addressing the safety position first, and I think we'll do right by Nick Cross by attempting to re-sign him. He's very athletic and still young. I thought he played well enough for us to at least give him a one-year deal. I also wanted to address the defensive line. I wanted someone with size that can help with the run game. BJ Hill would be a nice fit and a solid bridge player for that position, and we'll also offer a one-year deal to him at $9 million. I recognize that we don't have a backup for Sam Howell, and I personally think that Jameis Winston would be a solid fit. I signed Winston in my Broncos series last year. It was fun to watch him, so I wonder if we'll have the same experience playing with him in this series if we need him to. He'll be on the cheaper side of things as we give him a one-year $3 million offer. We go from one vet to another. It's just time for Bobby Wagner to come home again. We've got Tyrese Knight who could learn tons from him as a mentor, and maybe he'll be the boost we need on defense. Of course, another one-year deal, and we'll offer it at $7 million. The last free agent attempt is to find more speed at receiver, and I'd like to stretch the field a bit more, but also find someone who can return kicks on special teams. I think Rondale Moore has the ability to do both with his speed and his route running to encourage us, and we'll also give him a one-year offer. So these are the 5 attempts in the first cycle of free agency, and we'll see 2 of them make a decision. And welcome back, Bobby Wagner for his 3rd stint with the Seattle Seahawks, as well as Nick Cross returning as our current starting safety. We still want these 3 players in the second evaluation process. BJ Hill is no longer on the list, but he is also not a Seattle Seahawk because he opted to join the New England Patriots. That hurts since the defensive end position is such a huge need for our roster. So I quickly pivoted to a different direction and had already decided that Greg Gaines was going to be my backup option. So we'll offer to him, and it'll be $2 million cheaper than BJ Hill. Minnesota has also made a competitive offer for Rondale Moore, so that extra $2 million will come in handy as we up his offer. And for the 3rd evaluation period, all 3 have made a decision, and all 3 of them have decided to join our team. These are all short-term moves because we want to save money, especially when thinking ahead. We have some big names that'll be free agents going into the next offseason, and we need to be as flexible as possible because there's a lot of guys on this list that'll make a huge impact for this team. So I'm excited about our signings, but Rondale Moore in particular, because we are going to make a splash here by trading away Jaxon Smith-Njigba. This is probably the biggest shock of the offseason, but we're going to try and really change the identity of this team. I wanted a 2nd round pick for him, so I started with the Raiders who have Devontae Adams, and they're projected to take a quarterback 2nd overall, but we couldn't seal the deal. And then it dawned on me, why not pair Smith-Njigba with his former teammate at Ohio State, Garrett Wilson? The Jets need a splash move after just losing Aaron Rodgers to retirement, so a 1-2 combo with both Wilson and JSN should be a fun duo for them. And the Jets were heavily interested. It didn't take much. We just put together an extra pick swap, so it's JSN and a 5th round pick going to the Jets for a 2nd and 6th, and that will go through. Wilson and JSN will be a fun pairing as they now have 2 premier receivers for that team. For us, JSN just didn't have that breakout 2nd year I was expecting, and his touches were beat out by the vet Tyler Lockett. I also wanted more speed, and Jaxon had good speed, but I need more separation to create space for Sam Howell, and while these spec catches were great, it was just too risky to throw these passes at times. With this move, I will not run as much 11 personnel, and I adjusted my new playbook, so there will be a lot more 2 tight end sets, which also means we are in the market of taking a tight end in the draft. So that second round pick may come in handy, or we can trade back to add more picks since we only have 41 players on this team right now, and we still need to figure out how to fill out this roster. Also, Kirk Cousins decided to retire in stage 2 of free agency. As free agency ends, we see that Chase Young is headed to Vegas, Nick Bolton goes to the rival Chargers, and Amari Cooper returns to the Cowboys, along with Khalil Mack going to the Patriots. Across our division, the Niners just re-signed their players and lost Trent Williams, but the Cardinals on the other hand put in a lot of work specifically beefing up the offensive line, including this trade they made with Minnesota for Garrett Bradbury and signing Garrett Bowles from the Broncos. The biggest shock has to be the Rams. They brought in some interesting pieces like Spencer Brown and Hunter Renfrow, but Justin Fields has signed for 5 years for basically chump change. Justin Fields and Sean McVay would actually make a very intriguing offense with the personnel they have with Nacua, Kupp, and Williams. He's going to be a threat in both the passing and ground game, and now we'll have to deal with that in the foreseeable future. As we near the draft, here's what the top guys look like. There's a lot of question marks with this class for me at first glance because of the lack of explosive athleticism with this group. I still believe the approach is still to build up front, but we'll see. George Stevenson looks like the best player out of this entire class. I mean, the guy is 6'6" playing receiver and ran a sub 4.4. It's almost a no-brainer that he could be the first overall pick in this class. The questions are also at the quarterback position. I won't be taking one in this class. I'm looking for a really strong arm like elite level to stretch the field, and the top 2 in this class doesn't make me think they have either the arm strength or athleticism to sway me in their direction. It's at least worth a look, but most likely, it's Sam Howell's job in week 1. The fastest player in this class is Lance Jacobs running a 4.24, and with Xavier Worthy breaking the record, let's not gloss over how extremely fast 4.24 still is. And Jacobs also has the size to be a premier receiver, but it's doubtful we'll take a receiver high in the draft given how deep that room is. And the strongest player in this class is Demaryius Gholston, who benched 42 times and is a top 5 player in the class. Could this be Vernon Gholston's nephew? They almost have the same size and they both went to Ohio State, but I don't think there's a question we want him to be a Seahawk. He will also fill a huge hole in our roster. I know I want a tight end for this new offense I'm running, so I want to take a deeper look at Craig Patton during the private workout section. It's another Ohio State player and he has good size at 6'6", and a pretty good athlete. I think he could be a good fit for us if we can snag him in the 3rd or 4th round. I want to continue to build the defensive line. Kyle Peters from LSU caught my eye. I think with his size, we could move him to be our defensive end, and he has elite speed and all the other athletic grades are off the charts. Both these 3rd round options are great, so hopefully we can snag them both. How about a safety? Kameron Tucker out of Texas. I've been talking about the trenches a bunch, but I think there's definitely value in improving our secondary, which was dead last in passing yards. So this could be a big time upgrade if we go this direction. Hopefully we can get a full grade on those guys, but one last look at this roster before the draft. We know we want to address the offensive line and get another tight end to fit our scheme. Defensively, we have gaps all over the place, and I think it's best to attack it best player available. But if I had to pick a weakness, it would be defensive end. But alright, let's get into the most exciting part of this episode, and welcome to the NFL Draft. The first pick belongs to the Saints, and I would assume George Stevenson is the first pick of this draft. And the Saints go with a pass rusher. A shocker here already to start as Felix Claxton, the defensive end, gets taken number 1 overall. For the second pick, I would assume that the Raiders would go with a quarterback, but it's already up in the air. But the pick is in, and it's chalk as they stick with their plan. It is quarterback Terrence Holmes, who will find a new home in Las Vegas. The next few picks were all edge rushers and tackles, but the receiver is still on the board. I am tempted to trade up if he falls one more spot, but he is taken here 9th overall. George Stevenson, a top 5 prospect in my evaluation, goes to the Commanders and pairs with Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels. Fast forward to our picks, more offensive linemen and edge rushers come off the board, and with the amount of offensive linemen being snagged, I don't want to take any risk of trading down and just take my guy. It was always Demaryius Gholston the whole way through this draft evaluation, and we moved on from one Ohio State player this offseason to another, as Demaryius Gholston is the first pick of the Seattle Seahawks rebuild. Extremely excited about this pick. He's the 4th best player in the class, exceptionally strong, and a great pass blocker. But more importantly, he's got hidden development with 95 strength. We're off to a great start. While we picked a top 5 player in the class, I want to think ahead of what we'll be doing going forward to capitalize on this draft, and taking a receiver with Lance Jacobs' speed would be huge. But he gets taken by the Tennessee Titans, so we're gonna need to pivot our strategy. Moving ahead of this draft, more offensive and defensive linemen fall off the board, and the Jets take quarterback Ramon Beltran. The rookie is put in a great situation, especially when you have both Wilson and JSN to throw to. Kameron Tucker is revealed to be a 1st or 2nd rounder true talent, so we have enough information on him to consider taking him in the 2nd round. Tyrone Jenkins is also 1st or 2nd round true value. We did a lot of work on Jenkins during the season, and I would love to take him since he played college ball in Washington, so it'll be fun to keep him in state. But the Bears took him by the time it got to our pick, so with where we're at, it's best to take the best player available, and I believe this will solve our situation in the secondary. So we'll put the card in for Kameron Tucker, the safety out of Texas. And with the way our secondary struggles in the passing game, taking a guy like this could limit the amount of explosive plays our DBs gave up last year. He's a big time hitter in the secondary, and that sounds like a perfect fit for him to be a Seattle Seahawk. I don't want to put too much pressure on this prospect, but a safety out of Texas reminds me of Earl Thomas. And he's got hidden development. 2 for 2 in that department, but we do have a 2nd pick in the 2nd round. And I felt like the players on the board were good, but not necessarily an immediate need for our team, so it felt right to consider trading out of this pick. I really like the Vikings offer. It's a future 2nd and 7, but it also gives us a chance to add more players to our roster with a 5th and 6th round pick, since we're limited at the moment. This will be the only trade down that we can do, and we'll regroup for the 3rd round. And I wanted to consider 2 players, that's Kyle Peters, the D-tackle, and Craig Patton, the tight end. If we leave with one of them in the 3rd round, I would be very satisfied with how we've done so far. But the Eagles jumped us and selected the big-time Ohio State tight end. That one definitely hurt, but it's part of the draft. I wanted to find a way to trade up and keep my original 3rd round pick, but my greed got the best of me because we ended up not getting anything done with the Falcons. And the pick before us is the Broncos, and they selected Kyle Peters. That stung because I thought for sure we could leave the 3rd round with at least one of these guys, but we ended up with none. We can't trade back, so we'll need to pick here. We don't have a bunch of information on Zack Ballard out of Tennessee, but he does have good size to be a defensive end and a very good athlete with some skills I really appreciate. So our 3rd round pick is Zack Ballard. The front office seems to be happy about it. We're overjoyed, and so is the new Seahawk Ballard. His true value is the 98th overall player, which is still good, but the hope is to find guys at this stage to develop anyways. And he's got hidden development, so that's a big time hit. We're 3 for 3. We still need a tight end, and I don't want to wait any longer to get one. I like Nate McDonald. I wish he was a bit bigger, but the A&M tight end is a good enough athlete with solid traits where I would trade up in the 4th round with the Patriots, and it's just going to cost us a pick swap. With our new scheme and running more 2 tight end sets, he's going to play a huge role for the upcoming season, as Nate McDonald is our 4th round selection. 4 picks in and a wild offseason so far, and I'm pretty happy with what we've done in this draft. He's not rated very high, but he's got great hands and a smooth route runner, and that's all we need him to do as our new tight end. He's got 85 acceleration and 80 speed, but it's another hidden development, and that's 4 in a row. In the 5th round, I thought this would be a good time to just take a shot at a receiver. I was looking for more speed, but there just wasn't any, so I opted to find someone with good size, and Kendrick Cook makes sense here at 6'5" and 218 pounds. He's the 157th ranked player and has good hands. Unfortunately though, it ends our run for hidden developments, so we'll see if we can maximize Cook's talent and develop him. Staying in the 5th round, I wanted more bodies on the offensive line, and a day 3 value in the 5th round felt like a good move. The big man played college basketball, and hopefully he can transition from dunking to pancaking in the NFL. 6th round was pretty bare bones, so I just took a defensive end in Darren Foster for more depth. We have another guy who played basketball. He does not have hidden development, but there's definitely room to develop him. 7th round. This pick is from the Patriots trade we made earlier, and I found this 6'8", 383-pound monster at left tackle. Steven Gregory. The Michigan prospect is huge, and I want to see what he can bring to the table for us. He's not great in terms of true value, but it's just fun to take someone at his size, and maybe he can play guard for us since he has such interior presence. And how about 93 strength and hidden development? Okay, now that doesn't feel too bad with his true value because we can definitely develop him. Our last pick in the 7th round is Brandon Ballard. The TCU corner was the best athlete I could sort out, and it turns out to be a pretty good pick. He's a top 150 value, and he's fast. Needs work in man coverage, but his athletic ratings actually reminds me of Nehemiah Pritchett a bit. But that's the end of the draft. I thought we did okay. The 3rd round really stung, but we made up some good ground with the tight end and offensive linemen. But let's check them out. Wow, there's a lot here, but I would say we did very well. And we might have found some good value down the board as well. Starting with Demaryius Gholston, 79 overall with hidden development. He's already the 10th best guard in the NFL. Just an amazing athlete, and this is the exact type of guy I want to turn a franchise around. 2nd round was Kameron Tucker, just 21 out of Texas, also hidden development. He's a true 74 overall. He's the 33rd best safety already, and I'm gonna change his face because he kind of reminds me of Lester Banks from my Broncos franchise. I'll do numbers and faces off camera. 3rd round, we needed to switch our strategy, and it paid off with Zack Ballard. 70 overall with hidden development, and he's got a good swim move as a pass rusher. Nate McDonald will see a lot of playing time as a 4th round rookie with hidden development. Just 21 out of A&M. He's not as fast as I wish he was, but it'll do. And route running will need to be heavily developed for him to make a real impact. Kendrick Cook in the 5th round will be a good 4th receiver option, and we'll try to develop him. I do think there's something here. We just need to remain patient, and he won't be thrown to the wolves immediately, so he's got time to figure it all out. 6th round was really more about adding more depth in Derek Donnelly, and he's already a better backup overall wise than some of our other options. Darren Foster will need some time to develop as well. He is pretty athletic, and for now, we can use him as a rotational player. I am excited about this behemoth of a lineman in Steven Gregory. For now, I want him to be a focus player that I train during the week, and if we have any injuries, I think he could be the 6th option. I know the overall isn't great, but the guy is massive with great strength. He should be able to hold his own with more development. Lastly, Brandon Ballard could be Zack Ballard's cousin. He is a solid pick. I do think that he can even be our 4th corner at the moment. He is short in size, but his athleticism reminds me a lot of Nehemiah Pritchett, and that's the type of player that will see a lot of snaps from me soon. So that's how our draft went, but how did the rest of the draft look? George Stevenson is the best player in the draft at 81 overall. Then the safety Kerry Williams, and Gholston is just 2 points overall away from being the best player in this class, so I'm happy with that. But Stevenson is just an incredible player from Michigan. He does have hidden development, and just looks amazing. 95 speed, 97 acceleration, and 99 jumping at his size. The Commanders' offense is in business. Wild that he fell to 9. Quarterback Terrence Holmes is a 75 overall. I need to check these quarterbacks out and see if we missed out on anything. He does have hidden development, and honestly, he doesn't look too bad, so I might have scouted falsely on him as the Raiders turned to him to be the franchise QB. Ramon Beltran also with hidden development at 71 overall. He's got 92 throw power. Personally, for my quarterback that I'm drafting, I would like at least a 95 throw power from them. But still a good pick by the Jets, and he's got weapons to work with. Some players we looked at but missed out on is Lance Jacobs. I wasn't too upset since he was taken in the first round, the pick after Gholston, but he's a 75 overall with hidden development and lightning speed at 97 and 93 acceleration and 92 agility. Good player, just not in the range to get him. The next two did hurt though. First, Craig Patton, who I thought would fall in the third round, but the Eagles were all over him. He looks pretty good and honestly would have been a perfect fit for our team. It's just a shocker that the Eagles would have pulled the trigger on him, which is why I was sitting on that round. But this one actually takes the cake. Kyle Peters is a 72 overall with hidden development. He was taken a pick right before us by the Broncos, and I was bought in on him pretty much since I put focus scouting on him. I don't check development so the reveal isn't spoiled, but I had to check Peters, and turns out he's a superstar development player. Still happy about what we did, and if I had to give it a grade, I would say a solid B, but you guys can feel free to give me feedback for the offseason and draft. This will be the upcoming schedule for next year, and we will open up against the Niners. I can see us having some success, but we'll see as we enter the Sam Howell era. I've already gone through preseason and training, so things are up to date, and I'll show you the roster we have for week 1. And it's nice to see that they have us playing our divisional rival in the last game. Madden hasn't done that in recent years. I want to give a shout out to the comment section, because one of you pointed out Amari Barno. I know Barno is incredibly athletic and we could use another rotational player. I didn't make a trade for him because I had a feeling he would be cut after preseason, which he was. So we did sign Barno to be one of our rotational players, and I think he'll be a nice addition to special teams as well. But that is the end of our off-season episode. This is the roster heading into week 1. The plan was never to put the chips on the table. We wanted to retool to get younger and develop the guys on the roster to see who's a long-term solution. If I had to guess, this might be a long season. If there isn't a quarterback worth taking in next year's draft, it might be 2 long seasons. But our first challenge is going to be a tough one against the Niners. Thank you guys so much for your support. Please subscribe and like the video. Comment all your thoughts. As you can see, I do respond to them if they're within reason. Niners and Seahawks next episode. Have a great day. I'm MonkieC, and I'm out.